This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The United Shore Professional Baseball League games at Jimmy John's Field are the fun family entertainment experience that you just can't afford to miss. It's Thirsty Thursdays, Firework Fridays, live music Saturdays, and Sunday fun day for the kids. And don't forget, kids get to run the bases after every game, and parking is always free. Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica is your summer destination. Get your tickets today at USPBL.com.
And welcome to the latest edition of the USPBL Podcast. I am your host, Vito, and I am riding solo on this week's edition of the USPBL Pod as my usual co-host, sidekick, and partner in crime and fun, the doc from Doc and Jock, that is John Charles McElroon, is out on vacation enjoying the sunshiny state of Florida. And with that being said, I am joined on this week's episode by Director of Baseball Operations in the USPBL, Justin Orenduff, a former first-rounder of the LA Dodgers back in 2004, who founded the Delivery Value System, which aims to limit injuries in pitchers. And Justin in the league is all about the developmental side of things, about getting guys ready for the big leagues, and getting guys inked with Major League Baseball organizations specifically. And with that being said, one of the individuals that did ink a contract with a big league organization has reached the majors, thus making USPBL history by becoming the first alum of the league to reach the bigs. And his name, Randy Dobnak of the Minnesota Twins, who pitched this past Friday night and threw 4 scoreless innings for the Twinkies in his Major League Baseball debut. Big news right there, and the biggest news thus far for the league since its inaugural season in 2016. And Randy is just one of 34 guys now that have inked contracts with big league clubs. As just recently, 2 more individuals have inked contracts with Major League Baseball organizations. And their names are Noah Gotsis and Kyle Alagiz. Noah of the Eastside Diamond Hoppers and Kyle of the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, 2 right-handed arms that signed with the Colorado Rockies. Noah led the league in wins with 4, in strikeouts per game with nearly 9, while boasting an earned run average of 3.35. As for Kyle, he had the league's 3rd most wins and struck out 31 batters in 45 innings pitched, and had been one of the more consistent pitchers in the league over the course of the last 2 seasons. And that's where the theme and the mantra of the United Shore Professional Baseball League comes into play. The development of these arms and position players over time, in order to allow them to become guys that are able to join big league clubs. And one of the guys, once again, that rose all the way through the Twins farm system to the Twins Major League Club is Randy Dobnak. And Justin, my guest, once again on this week's episode, talks all about Randy Dobnak's progress through the USPBL back in 2017 with the Utica Unicorns, about what Randy's arsenal consists of. Also, we touch upon Ty Hensley, currently of the Utica Unicorns, and whether or not Justin believes that Ty will get another shot with the big league organization and what he needs to continue to work on in order to get that chance once again. All of that with Justin and more right now. So to start off here, Justin, thanks for doing this with me. Really appreciate it. Now, how did you get to the United Shore Professional Baseball League?
So this first year, 2016, I had previous contact with Brian Berryman, who was the director of baseball operations his inaugural season. And he said, as the league starts, we want to bring you in as the throwing coordinator for the entire league. He had followed my stuff, some of my stuff I did with DVS. So, I agreed. I said it'd be a great opportunity for me. So I came up, oversaw the entire pitching program, throwing coordination for the league. And at the end of the year, that's where we were kind of prepping for next year. I was going to come back in kind of a similar capacity in 2017. Berryman stepped away, I think about a month and a half before the season started, and that's where I became, the director of baseball operations as it stands today.
And there we go. A second of that. Now, what does that job as the director of baseball operations in the USPBL exactly entail for you, Justin?
It's funny because I kind of get this question a lot, right? And I would say that I deal more within the development philosophy, putting the plan in place, the branding of the baseball, and more of a kind of a general manager capacity. Anywhere from the signings, the scouting, how we're going to go about the evaluations of players. And obviously, I have to build my own internal staff to help the players. So it's a lot where my focus is. And Mike Zielinski handles a lot of our, day-to-day business transactions, admin stuff, paperwork. He's the guy with the contracts that kind of makes all that happen.
And how about Randy Dobnak and him pitching for the Utica Unicorns and rising now to the major leagues, to the Minnesota Twins, becoming the first USPBL player to actually make it to the bigs? How big of a note and just a moment is that for the United Shore Professional Baseball League?
Well, that's definitely the pinnacle of what we do and what we set out to do. And now that it's happened, it kind of opens up this gateway and path for all current and future USPBL players to say, this is a realistic goal that I could obtain by coming to the United Shore Professional Baseball League, working my way through, developing to give me an opportunity to get to the next level. And, that's always our primary goal first, right, is just to get a guy signed. Give him enough kind of, development of the skill set, give him some knowledge, enhance his process, and he's got to continue to go do it. When Randy's a guy is a perfect example of continuing to do it in means of continual and consistent performance, which has allowed him the opportunity to get promoted into the big leagues.
For those that don't know about Randy, which includes myself, what does his pitching arsenal consist of?
So he throws this technically one-seamer, as they're calling it. It's more like a sinker, right? He throws a slider, changeup, and he's going to sit anywhere from 91 to 93, 94, can hit a 95, 96. It looks like with this time with the Twins, his average velocity keeps going up. Like the other night, and he made his debut. There was a lot of threes, a lot of fours, and some fives in there. Hard slider, 82, 83 with some downward action. So his stuff and his repertoire has increasingly improved as he's kind of gotten into the Twin system.
So I brought up how Randy pitched for the Unicorns. Now, a current pitcher for them is Ty Hensley, who was in a farm system at one point with the Yankees, a first-rounder, a lot of aspirations for him to become a big leaguer one day and become a frontline starting arm. He was a guest, actually, on last week's episode, of the USPBL podcast. Now, talk about him a little bit.
Sure.
And do you think he'll get a shot again in the big leagues?
I do, and I think that one thing with Ty, because he had the injuries, because he was a high school draft pick, he went through some adversity, right? He's had to really learn a lot of those things that you learn in the early stages, 18, 19, 20, 21. Some guys learn them in college. He's learning some pitchability stuff. He's learning when to throw a pitch and not throw a pitch, right? So he's understanding what we give him with how to have the delivery help you long term, stay healthy, avoid the injuries, utilize his natural talents, which he has one of the best curveballs we've ever seen, right? But use that to his effectiveness to help set up consistent performance. And he's definitely making huge strides. I know it's not the fastest timeline that he would want it, but he's learning a ton and he's going to be better for it long term.
And I know I said to get back in the big leagues. I meant with a big league organization in a farm system specifically. Now, what does he need to continue to work on then in order to get that shot again with a Major League Baseball organization?
Yeah, so he basically needs to understand what his pitchers are doing, right? And be able to consistently kind of, one of the hot things now is tunnel the baseball, right? Be able to throw his curveball off his fastball, have the same look, and just trust a lot of his stuff. Sometimes you see him, he'll get to 1-2, 0-2 counts, and then he tries to make it too good. Instead of just continually laying in there, let the hitters hit the ball, let the defense work in his stuff because it's good, will naturally play in his favor.
What have you noticed of guys trying to maybe, at times, trying to strike out batters too often, trying to go for that, 'cause that's the sexy stat, the K, and, increasing that K rate, right? So desired, and you see all these pitchers that can do it at the major league level. How often do you see where that gets the best of these guys who are still developing, and specifically at this level in the USPBL?
Well, to be completely honest with you, it's something that's been increasingly tough for us because not only is it, how hard can you throw it, but you want to ultimately try just to get the strikeout, right? And the guys that have been successful here and given opportunities, do they strike guys out? Yeah. But what they do is they command the baseball at a high level, and that's their mindset. And so to bring a guy in that has the opposite mindset, which is all about velocity, it's just harder and more challenging to get him to adapt to, look, trust the stuff, attack the zone, repeat your delivery, then the results will continue to follow suit. Because anybody here, it's going to take a little bit of like compounding of results and consistent results to say, okay, what you're telling us is right. We can kind of see it show up. He's on his way. Let's give him an opportunity.
And then a guy like Ty had 2 Tommy John operations within 13 months about of each other.
Right.
So the delivery value system, what you have founded, tries to limit injuries in pitchers, such as for Ty. So you've been working on that astronomically. Now, how did you actually come up with this delivery value system?
Well, most of it started with my own personal playing career, to be honest. I mean, I was a first-round pick, and I was kind of rocketing through the Dodgers system. I was in Double-A, Memorial Day 2006, and came out of the start, felt good, but the next morning couldn't lift my arm up. So I ended up, long story short, losing 80% of my bicep tendon, and the surgeons tell me, we don't know how many innings you have left, but there's definitely damage that was done. So from that point, I kind of went into analysis mode of, well, why me, right? Why not these other guys? Because I'm working just as hard. And so from that point, that's where I just slowly started to study the pitching delivery, but it wasn't until after I had to retire from the game where I started to really connect the dots. And that took me about 5 to 6 years to put this entire, DVS system into a kind of systematic process that we could introduce in a league like this, that we can introduce in Major League Baseball to standardize the way that guys improve by measuring it.
So being a first rounder yourself with the LA Dodgers back in 2004, how much has that helped you out in what you do now with the USPBL as well?
I think one thing that it helps me do in the eyes of our players is, I can walk out in the field and I'm talking about a lot of kinematic sequencing and energy, right? But then I can do it. And I can showcase it. And you can just see the relative difference or the future of what these guys are trying to understand. So it's a good way to kind of, give them a little bit of that physical look of okay, this is what he's talking about here. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that forever, but at the same
as you get older, right?
Yeah,
but now, still
it helps
young
with some
enough.
of the legitimacy of it, right? That I can kind of back it up of what we're trying to have these guys do, and they can see it.
So DVS tries to limit injuries in pitchers once again. So how do you specifically go about doing so with DVS?
So everybody that comes into our league, we go and we formally sit down with them for about an hour. Right? Because we have to get to know what they know. And then we go into, okay, here's how you're thinking about and currently creating this energy. And that's all it is, right? You're moving to throw a baseball. And then we go into, well, here's how your movements are creating risk. And then, based off what we see, now your program's set up to eliminate those risk factors in your daily program, and then start to working towards creating this nice systematic movement. We're efficient, and then ultimately we got to go execute in the game. But the great thing about the USPBL is we allow time for guys to fail. If a guy's definitely got this prospect level stuff, look, we'll work with him as long as he is willing to work as well. Because we're only half the equation here. Our player is the other half.
So some guys have this herky-jerky motion, right?
Yeah.
Which you can tell right away this guy's going to end up injured at some point, right? Or there's a stronger likelihood, you would say, right, based on watching this guy and their mechanics. I see Casey Mize. I want to bring him up really quick. Have you watched him, and anything you have to say about that, a guy that has now been injured and has been considered to have a herky-jerky motion that might affect him long-term too?
Well, we have scored and studied Casey Mize because he's in our data set, right? So, we consider him as a higher risk because he has a lower score, and I'm not going to publicly say what his score is, but he is lower, and there's things that he currently does within his pitching delivery that places him more at risk, right? And so the question is, just like myself, is how long do the risk factors stay present? Because what we know statistically is that every, let's say, range of DVS scores that we've studied over the history of baseball here, they have also a window of when the injury will occur, right? And each range you kind of get up to, that window of when the time of injury occurs just extends out, right? And that's all we're trying to do is just, if it was 3,000 innings before you get hurt, well, maybe that's an entire career for a guy. But right now, we studied everybody that pitched in 2018. All the scores, it increasingly is happening faster right? And like the average time to a major injury for a guy that's like just drafted is like 350 innings, 400 innings. It's like so fast because it's like there's just more emphasis to do more at an earlier age as these guys come up. And a guy that has a low or unsupported, let's say, mechanical frame, lower DVS score, is throwing really harder. Well, he's just kind of escalating his time to when that injury may occur.
So you're saying, I'm inferring here that guys back in the day, growing up, they weren't suffering injuries at as early of an age, or after only throwing maybe 350 innings, as you said, so they were throwing more innings before they succumbed to an injury, a major arm injury or something of that sort?
That's right. I mean, the guys that we have in our data set that, pitched in the 50s, 60s, 70s, a little part of the 80s, they grew up in kind of a different era, right, or decade. What we see is there wasn't the radar gun at the perfect game tournament, so the emphasis was more we talked about earlier, get the out. Make a pitch, right? It's not like they came off the field, oh man, you just threw up some zeros there, but you were only throwing like 82, right? No, I got an out, and I wanted to pitch 9 innings to give my team the best chance to win. So that was more of the thought, right? Now it's, well, I'm 15, I have to throw this miles per hour. I come into the USPBL, I have to throw 94. Some guys can do it more like easy than others, but everyone still has to be able to pitch at the end of the day. That's what gets rewarded. That's the Randy Dobnaks of the world, right? Casey Mize is a great example of a guy who can pitch. He's been great, right? Awesome stuff. The Tigers, they probably want him to pitch for 15, 20 years to maximize the value of him, right?
So how important is velocity then? Because it's so enamored about, right, and desired, but how about just getting guys out? You brought that up. In simplicity, right, getting guys out is a key to the game, right, to success for pitchers. Obviously, if you get guys out, you're going to pitch for a long, long time, pitch for 15 or 20 years. So how important do you think truly is velocity?
It's definitely a part of the game. It's always going to have a high value, right? We could probably give examples of guys that had lower velocities with success, but they had high levels of command or movement, right? So you always have to have a combination of a little bit of both. Now with the craze of spin rate, we can measure vertical, horizontal break with everything. Guys are getting objectively quantified in terms of what pitch is better than another, right? But from what I've seen, just in terms of guys here at the USPBL progressing forward and guys staying in the big leagues, well, you have to have a standardization of stuff to be able to stay around, right? But at the same time, I say once you have the standard of stuff, you have to continue to pitch and to be available to pitch and stay healthy.
How about pitchers getting babied? I wanted to bring that up with you as well. I think we've touched upon it before when I talked to you last year. But these guys, even in the minors and when they reach the majors, the pitch count, and it's so heavily emphasized, the pitch count nowadays, where guys back in the day like Jack Morris were throwing 100-plus pitches per start, right? Remember? So how about these guys getting babied? And is it negatively affecting these guys, you think, as they develop as well?
Possibly. At the same time, there's probably some guys that throw too much that shouldn't be because it's more at risk every time they throw the ball, right? I think the pitch count's an arbitrary number. I think it should be based upon the pitcher's ability to repeat their delivery, the velocity inputs, right, how taxing it is on every pitch, and whether or not the mechanics alter pitch to pitch. And one of the things that we're doing here at the USPBL, obviously you saw we raised the mound up. We're also going to track mechanical fluctuations between the first and third inning, third to fifth. We're going to see at what point does this guy truly start to break down? Does his stuff start to diminish? Does his mechanics change? And then we can say, hey, this guy really has about 75 pitches. Hey, we didn't see any breakdown at 100 pitches here. We have had pitchers here, they throw 100 pitches, 95 pitches, 105 pitches. The recovery's good. There's no signs that they're getting taxed too much, right? There's other pitchers, they're 45 pitches, 60 pitches in. Well, it takes them 3-4 days to properly recover. So it's understanding the individual and then making that specific pitch count recommendation for that guy.
So it's a case-by-case basis.
Case-by-case.
And that's how it should be, you're saying, for pitchers.
Yeah.
How you would emphasize it. If you were with the Major League Club as well, studying pitchers and evaluating them from start to start, you would say case-by-case basis. Not everybody should be on the same pitch count.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's like I remember when I first started getting into that, I read a book by Leo Mazzoni, and he had all the Braves pitchers, right? And it was, Smoltz could go longer than Maddox and Glavine. He's more of the workhorse type guy. A little bit bigger frame, threw slightly harder. Those guys could work deep into games, but his regimen was slightly different. And so it was his pitch count to where they're in the dugout thinking about, all right, what point should we get him out of there? You just kind of know each guy's relative range. But now we have so much extra stuff that we can track in Major League Baseball. Like, is this break starting to get a little flatter? Okay. Is it starting to get flatter between innings 7 and 9 or pitches 80 to 100? Well, those indicators that he could be getting tired.
Or when guys get tired out like second or third time through the batting order.
Right. Also, the big one of if a guy got, runners, he gave up a few runs in the third inning, he comes back out, walks the first two, they're more taxing innings, which can lead to higher levels of stress within an outing, which does factor in. And that's why you got to make sure that the recovery cycle between outings for these players, you're not kind of getting them and driving them into too deep of positions.
Here's a hot topic for you, the Tommy John epidemic.
Sure.
What do you think about these guys that undergo it at such a young age, 14 or 15 years young, not even years old, young is how I would put it. They're young guys still developing their bodies and muscles, right? So many muscles in their body are still developing. How about these guys undergoing it? And I've talked to Dr. Tommy John, by the way, Tommy John's son, about this epidemic as well, and he has spoken out about how these guys are undergoing the operation way too young.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, Justin?
I'll give you a really good example, and I actually talked to Tommy John himself, right? And so one of the questions I asked him was, well, how did you learn to pitch, right? And he said, well, easy. I was sitting on the couch with my dad and watching baseball. He says, if you want to learn how to pitch, throw like this guy, it was Whitey Ford. So he goes out, he just starts pitching like Whitey Ford, right? The thing is today, and what we've studied is, I don't think kids are watching as much baseball on TV, to be honest with you. But the way that they're throwing doesn't really involve a lot of movement or athleticism, but it involves really trying to aggressively use the upper body to throw hard. So if their peers are around them, all throwing pretty similar, and I have a lot of data because we study the youth population as well, that leads to say, well, a lot of these kids are out there throwing not necessarily correctly. And if they're starting to go to more travel tournaments and playing extended, portions of the year, and they're not necessarily synced up properly, the injuries are going to occur faster. So at 14, 15, 16, the joint itself would become pretty damaged. And sometimes the only way to repair the joint is to have the operation. So part of it is, the surgery itself has become probably pretty systematic in terms of where it could be okay. It's not going to necessarily detriment this kid for the rest of his pitching career, but what will detriment him if he continues to throw the same way.
And these guys are throwing more than pitching. Isn't there a difference too? Like I've heard of that. People bring that up. There's a difference between just throwing the baseball, trying to whip it by the batter, and actually pitching and knowing the art of pitching, as Jim Price likes to say on the Tigers broadcast on radio.
Yeah.
How about that difference too there?
Well, one of the things that we see too is guys that come into the USPBL is like they never train off the mound. And it's like everybody wants to go out and lawn toss or, we don't allow weighted balls in the USPBL, but like if you're doing a weighted ball program and that's 25, 30 minutes of your training program, where's the extra 25, 30 minutes of learning how to command the baseball? And so some of that is a lost art because I'm just trying to train to throw the ball hard, right? And compete in a game. But can you train to manipulate and consistently throw the ball wherever you want, change speeds? And that's where I think the difference in training and emphasis on when you train has changed today.
And you brought up young guys not watching baseball nearly as often as when you were growing up, maybe even when I was growing up. I see it now among my peers. They don't get into it. They don't watch baseball games, let alone, the Tigers are the home team, but they're not very good. It's hard to watch consistently. But good baseball on MLB Network, and the kids aren't watching it. How big of an epidemic is that? And also with the youth playing baseball at a young age.
Well, I think both are married there because, kids now, they're, scheduled more, right? So it's like, well, they're really, really engaged and in tune with what their team's doing, right? But because they're playing on the weekends and they may have school during the week or brother and sister and sibling that has another activity, when are they going to sit around and watch a ball game on TV? Because they're doing something else. So that built in, hey, my team's playing tonight. I want to sit here and watch some of my stars. That's not happening. And I think, the kids that we worked with here locally, you ask them who their favorite players, some kids take a while to answer. They don't really know the marquee names, and I think that that's the difference in the culture. I mean, there are more options, whether it's an iPad or Netflix or I'm playing on my own team. And, when I was growing up, it's like you had WGN and TBS with the Braves and the Cubs, and you had, Sunday night game of the week. So you were watching the teams play, and you knew who the players were.
And I feel like at times, too, it's oversaturated maybe even now. And then the kids, I think more importantly, have more options, like you said, with the technology and Netflixing and doing other things, esports with their friends, and just other options are out there. And then they're busy. They're traveling year-round, which I don't think was the case with the kids when you were growing up, right? I don't think that was just such as big of a thing going on at one time.
Yeah, I mean, the travel circuit and, just more youth-involved sports, I mean, it's become something over the last 10 to 15 years, which has really, taken more of a forefront. We had it available when I grew up, but it wasn't like the thing you had to do. It was an option if you wanted to do it. It wasn't like, you might want to really consider this. And don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of youth programs that I directly deal with, have been involved with, have worked with kids a part of, that are doing it right. Right? They have the best interests of the kid. They're going about it with safe protocols and practices, and it's good for the child. They can learn some really competitive skills. They can develop the skill set. There's a lot of team stuff there. They can learn commitment, responsibilities, all good things, right? But when it comes down to the medical side, right, and the injury side, that's where I kind of entered the conversation a little bit.
But let me ask you this too: prep baseball at the high school level, playing for your high school, which I think was bigger at one point too than now.
Sure.
Then the travel circuit, which has taken over, and people are doing that, plus playing at prep schools.
Yeah.
So how about the importance, perhaps, still of playing at your high school, and how you can still succeed, right, by playing at your own high school, and you can get to college or get to the majors?
Absolutely. I mean, it has become one of these things to where I think that everyone feels like if they don't hop on, a flight and get down to the perfect game and get seen, that they're going to lose the opportunity, right? Well, it all goes back to if you have something that is worth showcasing, you can go to a camp, you can play in high school, people will know who you are. It circulates quickly, right? And it's always been that way. People will come find you, they'll hear about you, it'll work. And it always evens out, right? But if you want to essentially really, really boost your profile with the stuff, then yeah, those events are there for you because you get entered into a computer and then anybody can search you. And then it becomes easier for the organization to get more information on you because you've been entered into a database multiple times.
Now, how about, let's get back to this. We're sitting here at Jimmy John's Field and watching some field work be done.
Right.
But games here, and let me ask you specifically, this league, how does it stand out when compared to other independent ball leagues throughout the country?
Well, I only speak from the the stadiums that I've been a part of and I've played in, and the feedback we've gotten from our players and the scouts that coming in. But I think that the best vocal recommendation that we have is from the scouts that come here. They've been all these ballparks, and then they get here and they sit 30 feet behind home plate, kind of right where we are now, and they look at the atmosphere, they look at the things that we have, going on with the dance teams and the bat dog and, all the different options that we have in the craft beer garden. It's like, wow, this is a really cool atmosphere, and it is. When I first kind of started doing this, I would kind of have to remind myself, just kind of walk the concourse, right? Because I can easily zero in on the baseball. But the atmosphere in terms of the fan experience is pretty cool.
And how about getting the young kids here as well? I mean, that's been happening. It seems like, and it's a great family atmosphere as well at Jimmy John's Field.
And that's kind of been one of the visions of Andy, from the beginning. We have the right field, kids play area, and then the families know that, hey, I can go to Jimmy John's Field. My kids are loving it. There's something for everybody here, and we can have a great family night.
Randy Dobnak has made it to the big leagues now with the Twins, has even pitched in a game. What else would you like to see done, though, with this league moving forward?
I think that it's only a logical progression that we show signs that we're moving forward and expanding. I know Andy wants to get another ballpark, and I think for us, being able to continually show, I'm speaking from the baseball side, to show that we're improving players and we continually to build more relationships with MLB organizations. And you never know. I mean, one of my goals and visions would to be like a true development league for Major League Baseball. I know we're independent, but I think the ability, if we continue to prove it for organizations to say, hey, USPBL is doing a great job giving these players an opportunity. Why not for us to send some of our guys there? Have an opportunity to play games, have a good atmosphere. Otherwise, maybe they're an extended, right, playing some games, but they could send them here.
And development is so huge over here. And you have guys that aren't just based here. You have a guy like Pat Adams, I know, from Warren, Michigan.
Yeah.
But it's not like everybody's a local product that was born and has resided in Michigan,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
And speak about that. Who are some of those guys out there that they don't live close, they weren't from Michigan, that have come here to play in this league?
Yeah, I mean, we got guys from Texas, Oklahoma, California, Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, a lot of Jersey, PA guys, right? And, the thing of what we're offering really is the opportunity and the resources, right? And we're not going to be paying guys multi-thousands of dollars to play in our league, right? Because we want to say, look, come here after, the draft or after your college season's over, give it 3 months. Get this opportunity, get this knowledge, soak it up. It could change your life, and that's kind of where we get back to Randy. Same thing. He was here for 7 weeks. I mean, that's not a long time, right? But that opportunity initially that he proved, hey, I can pitch. I got a little better here in terms of showcasing a little bit better stuff. I was the best pitcher in the league at a certain point when the Twins decided to sign me. Now you see what's going on.
Give it a try. Give it 2 to 3 months and see what happens. But you can train and definitely develop here as well.
Yep, because the players will see that when you come here, it's different.
Really quick, I'll leave you with this, Justin. What is one unique thing about you that many people do not know? Could be baseball related, non-baseball related, anything that comes to your mind right now. As I'm making you think, I know a little bit here too.
Unique thing about myself, I would say that, I've always probably considered myself like a non-athlete. I've always been kind of like the book smart guy, maybe. I always considered myself, the whole time I grew up playing, is like academics first, baseball second, or sports second. I just happen to throw a ball real hard, And so a lot of that, in terms of my school and my business training, has kind of helped me today.
And with the delivery value system, it's about numbers. You have
right.
to crunch numbers and know how to use them, right? Yeah. As well in so many words.
Yeah. So, ultimately this may be a message for the youth out there is like my education has helped me in kind of this second phase of my career, so to speak, my business career, my professional career outside of baseball, and my playing career.
Do well in school too. It is so important. And Justin, we'll leave with the kids and everybody else with that message here on this week's podcast. Thank you very much for all the time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
And thanks to Justin for all the time on this episode of the USPBL Pod. And now for a quick check of the standings in the United Shore Professional Baseball League. First with the East Division, where the Utica Unicorns lead with a record of 23-18. And they lead the Eastside Diamond Hoppers by 8.5 games. The Diamond Hoppers currently standing at 14-26. In the West Division, thus far this season, much more competitive, with the Westside Woolly Mammoths leading at 22-18, followed by the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers standing at 20-17, a half game back of the Woolly Mammoths. And now to the promotions taking place at the ballpark at Jimmy John's Field this week. Starting with Wednesday, which is always 2-for-1 Wednesdays. And also this Wednesday, it is ALS Awareness Night, presented by the ALS Association of Michigan. And then on Thursday, you have Thirsty Thursday, which, I love. I have brought that up numerous times now. It's something that my friends and I just love at Jimmy John's Field. Plus, how about this, guys? The Budweiser Clydesdales. Yes, the Budweiser Clydesdales are coming to Jimmy John's Field. Check it all out tomorrow night at Jimmy John's Field. Then on Friday night is Prostate Cancer Awareness Night, as well as Friday Fireworks Spectacular. On Saturday night, it is Country Music Night at the ballpark, featuring the J. Daniel Band. And then last but not least, on Sunday Fun Day, it is Beauty and the Beast coming to the ballpark. So you have all of that happening at Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica from tonight until Sunday. With all of that being said, before I get out of here on this week's episode of the USPBL Podcast, I have one more note to bring up, and it is the Player of the Week in the United Shore Professional Baseball League. And that would be for this past week, Zach Gray of the Eastside Diamond Hoppers. Gray, a native of Hamilton, Ohio, earned the honor for the first time this season by batting an impressive .667 over 3 games. He also walked twice and posted a .727 on-base percentage. Now, on the season, he has started in 34 of the 35 games he has played in. as well as has batted .277 with 7 doubles, 1 triple, 1 home run, 14 walks, and 20 RBIs. He ranks tied for 3rd in the league in doubles and tied for 9th in runs driven in. Gray and the Diamond Hoppers will be in action tonight against the Westside Woolly Mammoths at 7:05 p.m. Remember, gates open at 6 p.m. and it is 2-for-1 Wednesdays, which means you can buy 1 grandstand ticket and get another for free, plus buy a hot dog and get 1 dog for free. Fans can also take batting practice on the field after the game. So congrats to Zach on that honor, and best of luck to him the rest of the way this season in the USPBL. And guys, that wraps up this week's episode of the USPBL Pod. I am your host, Vito Churko, signing off. Adios.
The United Shore Professional Baseball League games at Jimmy John's Field are the fun family entertainment experience that you just can't afford to miss. It's Thirsty Thursdays, Firework Fridays, live music Saturdays, and Sunday fun day for the kids. And don't forget, kids get to run the bases after every game, and parking is always free. Jimmy John's Field in downtown Utica is your summer destination. Get your tickets today at USPBL.com.